Hang on. Hey guys, thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Terry Holland, trainer of NLP, hypnosis, and timeline therapy. And this is Stefano.
Hello, I'm Stefano Casalter. What's so funny?
I think it's doing something weird. I think it's showing up one at a time, and I don't know what's going on.
I'm an award-winning speaker and also master practitioner of NLP. And we're here to talk about preparing for your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Preparation's very important. I'm sorry, we just finished our Fearless Speakers weekend, and my ego is trying to recover from it was supposed to be the Fearless Speakers weekend, but it turned out to be the Terry Holland comedy tour.
No.
It's like a 2-day Stefano Casalter roast night. It was so I'm trying to recover a bit.
You're fine.
So preparation, 9/10 of your presentation is preparation.
Mm-hmm.
And preparing for your audience is an important part of this process. And this was brought up by Lydia last week when she was mentioning, how do I craft my speech to suit my audience? And I think that's a great idea. It shows that Lydia's kind of got that commitment for excellence, because preparing your speech to suit your audience is one of those things that makes a good speaker great. A lot of people will use the same speech and not even give a second thought to it. But once you start crafting and using little tweaks to make your speech even better to suit your audience, will make you great. So tonight we're going to touch upon just a few simple techniques that can help you tailor make your speech for your audience. And these small things will make a big difference. So one thing that we can do is customize our message.
Mm-hmm.
So we think it's a good idea, if you're putting on a speech for a paid audience, is talk to the meeting planner beforehand and ask them simple questions. You can get a lot of insight into little things you can use by just asking simple questions.
Yeah, and finding out about the company, find out about the group you're speaking to, maybe about their core values and beliefs, to make sure that you are being respectful of their organization, as well as tailoring your presentation to meet their needs.
Yeah, so for example, earlier this year, I gave a presentation to a group of entrepreneurs. And there's a speech I usually use that is about some of the mistakes I made in business. And these were kind of tailor-made for inspiration, just to inspire everyday people. But I was able to take that speech and tweak the message a bit to make it not just inspirational, but motivational to entrepreneurs as well. What's so funny?
No. That's why I took myself off the screen, because I was like, I have the giggles tonight and I don't know what's wrong with me.
Oh man, that was a fun weekend, wasn't it? What a great group of people. Yeah.
I think that's what it is. You brought up the weekend and now I keep
Oh,
fun.
yeah, that's one thing we do at our weekend too, is we tailor each weekend depending on who's attending. So for example, we teach public speaking, but this time we had a group that was more entrepreneurial than, say, other groups we've had. Like, for example, we had one group that was more a Toastmaster kind of group.
Yeah.
So we still taught the same sort of techniques, but we changed the context in order to give them a vision on how they could use the tools to suit their, their application.
Yeah.
So there's a way that I use that can help you flush out more messages for each of the stories or speeches you have.
Mhm.
And I keep going back to the story journal that we had discussed in, I think it was our very first webinar, is keep a story journal, write down all the little stories, the speeches you have, and they become a great tool for you in the future when you need to get something together.
Right.
So what I do is I take one of the stories or the speeches and I'll flush out, say, 10 different messages that I could use for that. So for example, one speech I had was about being on thin ice. So that was one message you could have. Now, how could you tailor that to a different audience? There's a million ways.
Right.
But if you write down 10 different ones, it starts kind of lighting up the neural networks on how to do these things properly.
Well, one thing we also do in our training is we ask people what it is that they want to get out of the weekend. And then we can tailor everything we do to make sure we address their needs. And that's something you can do as well, is asking the event planner, the organizer, whoever's bringing you in to speak. You can ask, what are some of the common concerns that this group may have that you can make sure you address during your talk. Another way you can tailor it right to the audience. Or you can just ask the audience themselves, what are some of your concerns around this issue? And then if you have those stories ready to go on the fly, you can just pull them out as you need them and customize your presentation for that group.
That's an excellent point. And that's something that we've done in the past when training together, is at the very beginning, we ask, what do you want to get out of this? And everybody usually has something different. We always write that down. A good point of doing that is before you close your presentation, your training, or your workshop, make sure you address every single one of those things. That way, every single person will go out of there feeling, wow, that was perfect. They answered everything, all the concerns I had. And if you get to a point where you don't know how to answer something, then just admit it. I don't know how to do this, or I'll get the answer for you and get back to you.
Yeah.
So one good way to do it is if there's someone special in the audience, you can always use that person. It's good to bring in different leaders or inspirational people that have done something. If you're speaking to a corporate office, what's a story about the founder or someone that's important in the organization? For example, last Wednesday, I gave a workshop, and there's a good friend of mine that I knew was going to be there. I actually brought him into my presentation with a few jokes and other things that just warmed it up to the audience. I even went to went as far as to add his picture into my presentation, which was a nice surprise for people. And I got some good laughs, and it gave me some good rapport with the audience.
Nice.
So look for leaders that you can, I'd be careful if you're poking fun at somebody, but if somebody's very popular, it's usually a good sign that they're good to bring in.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to use them though if they're not well known in that group, or right, because then it's not going to work as well.
Exactly. Now, this is one of my trademark things to do, is adding callbacks to your speech. Now, this was taught to me by the great Bruce Mallory. And I don't know, did you ever meet Bruce?
Did I? Of course I have.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, I figured that. And he's one of the funniest guys I know. And he would always be doing this little technique that made everybody kill themselves with laughter. And that was bringing in callbacks. For example, and the beauty of this is you can bring callbacks in, and it makes everybody think that they're in on the joke. So it's a nice way to get everybody laughing and in the same sort of mood. For example, my Tall Tale speech in 2015, my championship speech, it was tailor-made for every audience that I presented to. And so I had these kind of opportunities set up in the speech that could be kind of plug and play. So I could basically plug anybody's name in there or a different situation, and it would be funny to everybody. But it would be even funnier to the audience that I prepped it for, because it included those people right in the audience.
Right.
So there's another technique that's really powerful is use plug and play moments. For example, and I've got another example here for my last international speech. A way you could do it is you can plug and play anything when you use like or than. So for example, you could say, our Fearless Speakers weekend was like, and then I could plug in anything. I plugged in the Terry Holland comedy show. Or it could have been the Stefano Casalter roast night for 2 days. One thing I did at the international speech last year was I had a point where in my speech, I was scared to make a speech inside my speech. So I figured out, okay, I'm going to put a like statement here, because my setup was, I was so scared I could have bombed worse than, and then I had something that I could plug anything in there. It just turns out that the MC was Sharuk Darwala, he's a funny guy. He tells jokes all the time. So I decided before I went up for my speech, I was going to plug in there. I was going to bomb worse than Sharuk Darwala's jokes, which was a pleasant surprise for everybody in the audience, and it got some good laughs. So I pepper these opportunities through each speech, and I could put anything into those. I can use anybody to plug into them, and it turns out to be an effective, hilarious way to get people engaged. So use a like. It can be anything like, worse than, better than, it was kind of like. Those kind of statements are good setups for plug and play moments.
Cool.
And you do these things intentionally, or I do them. Say, for example, Bruce Mallory, I don't know if he's so kind of brilliant in his humor. I'm not sure if he knows that he does this.
Right.
Whereas me, when I was never funny, so I had to learn humor. I had to learn the anatomy. Yes, right. Yeah, anatomy of humor, so I could create jokes. I could learn a formula, so I could put things together to make jokes. So if you feel you're not funny, here's what I would do is, when preparing for an audience, if you have to speak that day, is carry a pad of paper around with you and look for little subtle opportunities that you can use to add to your speech. So if you have those plug and play moments ready, you can just jot down little reminders for yourself that you can put into your speech. And it's almost gives the audience a feel like you're customizing the speech just for them.
That's cool. Yeah. Anything else?
Sure. Yeah. Another thing you could do is, if you're, say, for example, I know you're doing a speech for a certain organization next week. Mm-hmm. And, one thing that you can do is look for different articles or buzzwords or certain things that you can throw into your speech that it's kind of like an inside joke or an inside thing where you actually go in knowing something and they might not even expect you to know. That's an interesting way to get good rapport with the audience as well.
That's cool. Yeah, it kind of runs into a time I was speaking at an organization. This was a few months ago, that my brother-in-law used to work for, and he was very well respected there until the company, they were bought out. He ended up working for another division of the company. But when I went in there and I remembered that he'd worked there, just bringing up his name, it was like I was one of them. And this was a tech company. That's not my world. It's not my forte. but just mentioning who I knew there, suddenly it was like I was one of them. It was rapport. I was accepted by the group because I knew someone they all respected.
Mhm. No, that's an awesome point. Another good thing to do is you can call ahead for meeting planners and even ask them, who would I talk to that's a high performer in your company, or who is somebody that's really recognizable, and even call them up ahead of time. Get some inside details about the business or the company or the organization you're speaking with. That could be a gold mine of stuff that you can use to mold your speech around it.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a great question, is why not do what it takes to customize your message, you customize your speech, your jokes and everything to suit your audience? I think that's a great question, to make all your speeches go from good to great.
For sure. Yeah. So if you guys have any other questions or topics you'd like us to talk about, feel free to post them on our page. And if you have any questions on this topic, feel free to comment below and we're happy to answer any of your questions. Yeah. I think that's it for tonight then.
Okay, that's fantastic.
All right. So
All
thanks
right.
for joining us and good night now.